Hello everyone, and welcome back to Video Games Are Okay Maybe, the heretical side podcast premium we give to our premium members. We talk about video games for some reason. Joining me as always is Reese.
Hello, it is the ultimate sellout from us, is where you give us $5 and we say, okay, maybe we like a couple of video games.
That's a secret. We're selling you just weapons grade Bigatato secrets of which games are actually good.
Yeah, and which games are maybe complicated?
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I want you to start us off, Reese, because you've just recently, today, had an experience, shall we say, with Persona.
So I've been getting into emulation a little bit more. I got a nice front end called Big Box, and I've been trying to make that look really nice. Yes, I know it is a giant vagina that I fuck and play video games. That's what it's called. It's called Big Box.
Oh my god. Reese has got a big box. Got a lovely front end. Okay. I'm sorry, continue.
And so I figured the most I could do with emulation is play something that has been released recently. And I know that Persona 5 had been released for the PS3, so I figured if I could get that working, boy, would I have owned Sony and Atlas and video games as a whole. When I started playing it, Tom Devan, the video game man, was like, enjoy your good, bad game. Damn. Or your bad, good game. I'm not sure which. And, you know, at the time, I asked him what he meant, and he's just like, you'll see.
Oh, wow.
He was right. To start with the good, it's got a lot of stylish, interesting elements. It is one of the smoothest running games, you know, very few bugs.
You're running this on emulation?
Yeah, it's called RPCS3 is the emulator, and they've been doing a lot of good work on it. And it required a lot of tinkering to get it going. But except for one or two, like, really crowded scenes, I haven't noticed any snags. It took me a little while to get there, but it's pretty good. And, you know, Persona is just a JRPG with a zillion shaders. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's super, super demanding. And so the general story of Persona 5 is, you know, you're all high school kids and the world isn't fair to high school kids, and everybody in the story has some sort of great injustice, and you can go into a world called the metaverse, and basically like the psyche of what these different people believe. You can do the RPG battle stuff through the equivalent of their soul to change who they are, to change them for the better. And so you have corrupt figures. You start out with like a high school volleyball coach who's like been abusing the students, and you kind of go up the ranks to, Yakuza, stuff like that. When you're starting out, like the first 17 hours, it's not bad. And it's just like, if you can set aside the anime Dragon Girl stuff, which is not bad for an anime, but still really grating to be like, for the game to be like, oh man, isn't it fucked up that the high school coach abuses kids? Anyways, your teacher will give you a massage for extra energy. And you're like, okay.
Oh my God.
It is, that stuff sucks. It is offensive and gross. There's not a lot of it. It's just the idea that's salacious and gross. It doesn't dive into it. So it's fine. Mostly fine and medium fine. What the problem though is that it is so fucking long. It is by far the longest video game that I've ever played. I've been no-lifing this motherfucker for weeks, and I'm still not done. I think I've hit like the 100 hours, and I looked it up, and that is the equivalent of 2 Final Fantasies with all the trimmings.
Nice.
It is. And what is charming and engaging and interesting at hour 15 is the stupidest goddamn thing on earth in hour 100. All the palaces drag on forever. All the characters are, you know, they're just repeating the same things over and over. And it's just insane. And was playing this boss fight, and it was like an hour long. And I was just like, I just got to wrap this up. And then you like message me a half hour later. You're like, so about how long these boss fights? Huh? I was like, that's a great question. And the real problem is like the game, there's no depth that justifies this length. You're just doing dating sim shit to learn this one character who plays the arcade, has an abusive mother, and you go and change her heart, and he teaches you gun skills. And it's, I certainly have.
So the neglected child with neglectful parents teaches you gun skills. It doesn't give any red flags at all.
He's the expert at the gun game at the arcade. So that's so
stupid.
There's a lot of stuff like that. And I feel like the whole game would be so much better if it was just a short 40 hours and it just, you focused on your core team. They actually had more developed opinions, because every opinion, like every bit of story is just talking about what you've just done as a character. And like at first you're like, I feel like I'm part of this world. I'm doing exciting things. And then by the end, you're just like, no, I get it. Nobody likes me because this is the part of the story that we're in. I just need to get my gun skill up to here so I can go back into the palace and defeat this fucker and beat this game one day, maybe.
Not a bad game, but also apparently not a great game.
I would say it is the ultimate example of video games being way too long, overblown and bloated, ruining what is always good. Like, I don't want to get into it, but we were playing that Wolfenstein game, Youngblood, and just that it's the same thing on a small scale where you're just doing shit to do it.
Right.
Because the game needs to be a set length, and it decided that this game length needed to be 100 hours. And that's not even the game at the end of it. I've read it wants you to do a new game plus, which is going to do another 70 hours if you want 100% everything and get all of the thing. I will say, in the game's defense, the actual RPG stuff, the big drawback is it's way too easy, even on like the hardest difficulty, which I'm on. It's way too easy. It's just about managing how much magic you have, but it is an interesting system, and it's very dynamic. Like everybody has their own gun. There's a ton of different magic types.
Oh, just like an American school.
Exactly. Just throwing fireballs and lightning and shooting your rifle. But yeah, and so that stuff is good, and it's interesting how the stuff you do out in the world affects that. It's just, eventually it just becomes rote of just, all right, I got to level up the teacher so I can have more energy, and I have to level up the gun kid so I can have better gun magic. And it's overwrought. And there's a whole, the last thing is the one other good aspect. There's a whole demon summoning, like kind of Pokemon where you capture different demons and you can manipulate them in a lot of interesting ways to create other demons or empower them or turn them into items. And there's a lot to do there. And that's a lot of fun. The art on the demons is all really crazy and interesting. But yeah, I don't want to make my explanation of the game as long as the game itself.
Damn.
So I think I'm gonna end it here. But that's my current state of video games are okay, maybe. I think most people already knew whether or not this was the kind of game for them.
Right.
So,
I mean, to me, that sounds interminably fucking awful. I mean, as somebody who has like at most 1 or 2 hours to game a day, and has approximately the energy for about 30 minutes of such, I would say that the idea of trying to complete a game like that sounds like a nightmare.
It would almost be better because if you could just return to it every hour and it was the only game you ever played for the rest of your life, then you'd come back to it and be like, oh, I'm here with my pals, Ryuji and Anna's here. And it doesn't seem like bullshit, but that's not the way we all play games. We'd have as long a sitting as we can sit, and it doesn't work.
I don't know if I ever mentioned that I finished Neverwinter Nights too. In terms of RPGs, that's way, way more up my alley. It's got the early BioWare-esque character interactions with your party. It's not as fleshed out and developed as later BioWare games, unfortunately. I actually think it was made by Obsidian. They have a lot of crossover in that regard. Yeah, Neverwinter Nights 2 is a very nice kind of casual game, except when I had to fight against rogues and they like insta-killed you with backstab damage. But it's very nice and casual, and the story is pretty good too. That's all I have to say about it. Go play Neverwinter Nights 2.
What's the game that you brought, the RPG that you really love, that you brought the music for that one time?
Oh, the steampunk one.
Yeah, the steampunk one.
That's called Arcanum. And that is honestly a fucking amazing game.
I haven't finished it, but I was watching play of it because I have a lot of difficulty getting it to work. Mm-hmm. And I was really enjoying that. But it's like, you know, the story is being told along the way, and then the character develops as in response of you doing things. And I can only assume it's not 100 hours in length. So it feels like it's a long game, but it's an appropriate epic. Right. Not just like, you're going to live every day of this Japanese high schooler's life. And sometimes interesting things are going to happen. And sometimes you're going to make a donation to Rain as to atone for what you just saw.
Arcanum, honestly, I think is one of the best settings in video games that's ever been made. Because it captures a sort of mystique of bygone ages. Because it's basically the story of Arcanum, or the world story of Arcanum, is that it's a world with magic that's going through an industrial revolution. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's interesting is that technology and magic don't mix in this world. So technology basically relies upon physics and like the rules of reality being what they are, and magic bends those rules. Powerful magic fucks up technology, but also technology, for some reason, fucks up magic. Or it just doesn't work on magic. So if you're a wizard and you try to use like a healing salve, which is mechanical, it doesn't work on you. You have to use magic potions.
It's been a while since I've seen the LP, but it has like these interesting little scenarios where these things can play out and your decisions impact the world in a way that's engaging like that.
It's really one of the best settings, like I said. It's this world where all the great epic magics is behind it. And there was a war between like the Magic City and the Technology City, and the Technology City won. So it's sort of like magic is in decay, basically. You see things like the archaeological dig site of the last living dragon. It's just removed enough to where it's just, you feel that sort of sense of loss. Where it's just like, oh my god, there used to be dragons. And now they're all dead. Because of course.
In Persona 5, I think the one flaw to the story is that the core theme that's engaging is that there is society's law and what they say is justice, and what you know in your heart to be good and moral, and how those two things are completely at odds. And like at first, that is really interesting as you make those changes. But as the story goes on, it's just not well written enough and not nuanced enough. It's doing all this dumb anime, like inappropriate salaciousness stuff where you're just like, listen, I don't want to be too much of a prude, but this is like, you know, a bunch of 16-year-olds. Let's chill out. It's tough for you to take the moral high ground while you're doing this. And there's just like no depth to the characters usually. Like if you go through the dating sim stories for a couple of them, it can be legitimately touching, but it's a roulette. It's certainly not every one, and it's not something you really feel in the day-to-day, because every conversation in the game revolves around you and what your group has done recently, which is like fine in a sense where it like keeps you grounded and makes you feel powerful, but it's at odds with themes.
I just wanted to say that in Arcanum you can hire a prostitute.
Oh man, well that game's canceled too.
Yeah. So yeah, the thing that's frustrating about Arcanum is that it's, for good as it is, it's like 75% done because they ran out of time and budget to work on it with at Troika, which is like such a shame. So they're like quest lines that just kind of don't go anywhere and just kind of fizzle out. One infamous example is the one where like there's a gnomish conspiracy. That's a little bit sketch, but in most other regards, it's actually very, very good. Another thing I want to mention is that in one part of the game, you go to like this desert island, find like the washed up remains of like this ancient mechanical submarine that looks like a giant fish.
Mm-hmm.
And you like run into things like this constantly that are just like so mysterious and like incredible. There's like an ancient, highly advanced technological civilization that disappeared mysteriously as well. And during the course of the game, you figure out what happened to them.
The other problem with the game is that it's tough to get it to run because I spent quite some time trying to get it up and running, and I can never get it to be really playable in a way that I found to be enjoyable, despite the fact that I've heard a lot of good things and it seems really fun. But that's why I've kind of just decided to just watch a Let's Play like a game journalist.
That sucks. But if you can get it to run, honestly, Arcanum is one of the best RPGs. Second only, in my opinion, to stuff like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Torment. Planescape Torment, that is a game that is fucking amazing story-wise. I would honestly recommend that if you want to check out a game. They have an enhanced, like, remastered edition that I assume will run on things. I think I already own it, too, so maybe we could do the Steam Share thing.
That would be cool.
But now we're talking about games I played, like, 10 years ago, so...
Let's segue on the Steam Share, which is a feature that Steam is using to steal from Parsec, which basically turns couch co-op into something you can play online.
Yeah.
And we've been using that to play...
We've been using
Gauntlet,
Parsec, not the Steam one. The Steam one isn't out yet.
To play Gauntlet Dark Legacy.
That's not how you pronounce it.
How do you pronounce it?
Gauntlet Dark Legacy.
It's true. I'm sorry for erasing Gauntlet culture.
Yeah, but I don't know how many of our listeners have played this because they're all fucking babies. Literal infants listening to this podcast right now. I am 27. Reese is 30-something.
We'll leave that something out there.
Reese, did you ever play Gauntlet Dark Legacy when it was around?
I didn't. As to show my age, I really loved the very early arcade Gauntlets a whole lot.
The 2D ones.
The 2D ones, when I would go there with my friends, that was one of the few 4-player games. So when these other ones came out, it was like too new and frightening for me to wrap my head around.
Like, oh my god, the graphics look so real. And it's just like a face with 4 polygons on it and like blurry ass texture across it. It's like, I can't tell the difference between this and reality. That's what the fucking 90s are like, man. Like that infamous magazine cover where it's just like real life, and it's Unreal 1. And those days were the best, though.
My favorite is the Valkyrie's hair just being a single flat plane, and you turn, and it's just like her hair disappears into nothingness for a moment.
It just clips straight into her body, too.
To me, it's not an apparently like compelling game. When you pitched it, I was like, all right, well, it's fun to play games with my friends, so I'll play. But I was like, I don't know about this. It's really won me over, though. Because it's got a lot of depth to the character progression in a way that I did not think it would. I thought it was going to be like, 19 arcade levels and then we're done.
Right.
But, we each have our classes. I am the Valkyrie and Alton is the Jester. And he has recently had a class upgrade. He is a level 40 clown.
I was a level 30 Joker before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Is...
That's the best thing. Is like old Gauntlet, I guess they didn't have leveling up. You just played, got items and power-ups and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I haven't played any of the older games. I think I probably played the original Gauntlet a very long time ago on Xbox Live and stopped after 5 minutes because I was like, this sucks.
I mean, it's an arcade game. It's designed around getting your quarters. A quarter would get you X amount of health, depending on what the dip switches were set at.
Right.
And, it's simple compared to games today, but it was complicated compared to what was out, mid-'80s.
I'm sorry. I'm just imagining you playing it going like, is this Pac-Man? What's going on?
That's exactly what it was like. It was just everybody in the arcade was just playing the game and just being, is this Pac-Man? Which one's Pac-Man? And we were just all extremely confused and angry. And we'd fist fight each other.
Jesus, that sounds great. But back to Dark Legacy, I think the thing that sells the game even more so than the mechanics, which are very satisfying but very simple, is the style of the game. So every time you level up, it has like this really great announcer that everyone should go look up, who just every time you do something cool in the game, he's just like, Green Jester has gained a level. And then when you get to every 10 levels, you get a new rank. So you start off as like a jester, and then I can't remember what was at level 20, but level 30, it's, you are now a level 30 Joker. And then recently it was like, congratulations, you are now a level 40 Clown.
And I was just like, finally, somebody just went out and said it.
It is just like dripping with this early 2000s 2D put in 3D environment art styles. And honestly, at the time, this game was dinged for having shitty graphics. Going back to it has an almost nostalgia flavor, because it's like, I don't think I would change the graphics even if I could. Obviously, because we're emulating it, I can upscale the resolution something really good. Then that looks really great. But the graphics themselves just look so stylish nowadays. It's sort of like a hipster retro thing.
It's really true is that time was just like a race for the most realistic looking polygons. Now is its own kind of weird, almost found art aesthetic, because they certainly weren't designing it necessarily to be like, this is what the game should look like. It's like, all right, this is the best we can do with with the technology that we have. And I agree, it looks great. The highlight to me this far has been the airship level. It's like weird, fucked up, rotten, rusted airship with all of this like poison barrels and stuff just constantly spraying. It's weird 2D on 3D acid effect. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that like back in the day when I played it, I always kind of appreciated its sense of style. I don't think I recognized the fact that games couldn't be photorealistic back in those days. Almost made it so that they had a much more interesting style, like more interesting art direction to compensate. Gauntlet Dark Legacy has an almost cartoonish art direction. I could gush about it for ages, but I think people should go look it up and see for themselves, because it is just fantastic. And like every level is either like an old school AD&D dungeon crawl or like a haunted house.
It's very complicated too, was what I'm surprised to discover, is those first levels were fairly quick, and now each one we play takes a half hour because there's so many twists and turns. It's all about collecting the rune stones and the feathers and the talons, a lot of treats and treasures for you to go after. And so it's actually very engaging, kind of building the progression that way too. There's so much to grab and do. I mean, it's certainly, within a somewhat limited camera angle, sometimes it's frustrating, but that almost adds to the charm a lot of the time.
I mean, I think the camera angle is probably not my favorite aspect. It's functional. When it works, I don't notice it, so that's the best time for the camera. When it doesn't work, it's sort of annoying. But in terms of gameplay, like you compare this to a modern game and you realize just how much we've lost in terms of how much treats are in the game compared to what they monetize. This game is sort of like, we've joked before, I think, about both being incredibly treat crazy in video games. In that, like when Borderlands, I would just zoom in and snatch up all the weapons and then drop them if I didn't need them. And this game just hits on all those fronts, like incredibly well. Honestly, that aspect of the game has aged so well in comparison to how modern games, like they take out cheats, they take out all your treats, they lower it to like a drip feed of treats. They want to monetize it. They want a microtransaction, everything. So you have the Ubisofts of the world creating these vast open worlds that are just dull and dry and have like tiny, tiny treats scattered around in the hopes that you'll spend like $5 on like the treat pack. And this has like secrets. It has secret codes. It has secrets that you unlock by hitting them with like your ranged attack. And it's just great.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think too, part of what's so enjoyable about it is I'm sure there was an instruction booklet, but for me, just it will explain when the time is right, when you need to do something. You'll pick up a little scroll and it'll remind you to do this or that.
Death awaits you in the shower.
Death awaits you in the toilet. But yeah, I mean, we've been playing. That's been our go-to co-op game for a while. We tried a little bit of Shrek 2. I didn't stick.
Yeah, Shrek 2, despite the fact that I remember loving that game as a kid, like playing through the demo, like the Xbox Live demo that they include on every episode of the Xbox magazine. I played through that and I was like, man, this is really fun. And it sort of reminded me of the old school Simpsons brawler game, like the arcade one. But going back to it, it's just like fucking bad. They even have like the shitty fake voice actor for Shrek. You need to help me collect these eyeballs. So nobody wants to see me hungry.
Fiona could slow down time. She has bullet time for some reason.
Yeah.
Shrek just does like a belly flop. It's really funny. And so I can imagine like as a kid being like charmed with what's going on. But while playing it, it was just like, this sucks.
I think it picks up later on because it gets more combat focused, but like that intro level was so shitty because you just had to stop every 5 seconds to like have some extremely shitty voice actor tell you a bad joke. Also made by Activision, or published by Activision of all people. This is before they just made Call of Duty clones over and over and over again.
Not even clones. The one thing about the Shrek 2 game that was notable to me was at the end of the level, there was a rhythm game. And because we were emulating it, it was different buttons than I had on my controller. And the buttons were in different positions than they were. And so I had to like figure out what button was in what position and like memorize that. And it was honestly one of the most challenging rhythm experiences of my life, just because it's like
so
in the fire
too.
of the flames. But Fiona's singing to birds.
It was so deeply unpleasant that I was just like, man, I hope that it's hero time gets fucking just seared into our memories by just the shittiness of it. We've also been playing co-op on a game called Ace of Seafood, which is an incredibly weird game.
Yes. Ace of Seafood is a game where you are a fish or a prawn. That's what you start out as. And then you basically go looking for other coral reefs and try to dominate it. But the fighting you're doing with lasers and bullets and homing missiles.
Yeah.
And you're just rolling with your crew of
fish,
sharks and barracudas and stuff, fighting other fish in the sea with your fish lasers.
Honestly, I don't think that we'd be able to describe it very well. Like, if you describe it mechanically, it's like a three-dimensional third-person shooter because it's underwater. So it's sort of like, what's that 4D shooter? Depth? I'm totally forgetting. Descent. It's Descent.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I played Descent.
It's like Descent. It's like you have a squad of fish around you, and you can pick their formation and what they're doing, like free fire, defend, surround the enemy. It's nuts. And every fish you kill, you pick up their DNA. And if you pick up enough, you can unlock that fish for your own squad. And you can upgrade your fish.
There's no way that we can describe it to do it justice, is the thing. It's so weird as an experience that it's just the kind of thing where you have to sit down and play. And in a way, like, it's not a full game. It's just like these collection of extremely weird systems. It's a lot of fun. I was enjoying tooling around with you. You would see the shark. We'd fuck up the shark. You can fight boats.
Yeah, warships exist in the game for some reason. And I think one of the cool things is just like the boss monsters. Like as far as I know, there's only 2 of them, and I won't spoil the last one. But the second to last boss in the game is a giant squid, and he's like every other fish in the game. If you kill him enough, you can unlock him as a fucking playable fish.
The giant squid was so fucking scary because we had to go basically into the Marianas Trench.
Yeah.
To find it, and then it's just this thing explodes in a sea of red lights and lasers that'll just immediately chunk your life down.
Immediately murders Reese.
If we ever do another spooky Thanksgiving, that's going to be on the list because like I had such a like startled like oh my god moment, and it's like the only thing that like ended my terror was that I immediately died. It was just like, oh, okay, well nothing else can happen to me now.
Yeah, it's fucking spooky as shit. I played through this game on my own. I actually beat the game on my own before, but we're playing through on co-op now because it has co-op for some reason. So you have 2 squads of fish rolling around the map just murdering things. Yeah, it's a short game, and I think that's one of the things I really like about it is that it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Man, right now, big ups to any game that doesn't overstay its welcome.
It does not 40 fucking hours long because you have to build relationships with each of the fish.
You play every day, Alton. Every single day of this kid's life. It's fucked up.
Oh, man. Because my job is basically just getting my dick stomped for like 9 hours a day, especially when deadlines come up. I appreciate games that don't overstay their welcome because it takes so long to finish like a 40-hour game for me. Like just fucking months. Like
legitimately, like outside of like gamer culture stuff, that is the worst thing about video games is that they don't know how to pace things in such a way to make it just like a tight, engaging experience because you have to have your value for the $60 game.
Yeah.
And it's so nice when a game feels comfortable enough to do that.
Hell yeah. I mean, just the satisfaction of beating a game is something that I enjoy so much. Like just being able to feel like, finally I can put this game down now. I don't have to have it installed on my hard drive anymore. Like that to me, the uninstallation of a game is one of the most satisfying experiences.
That's one of the main motivations to play a game. You're just like, I gotta get this fucker off my hard drive.
For real though.
27 gigabytes? What the fuck?
Fucking, the bigger the game, the more satisfying to uninstall that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
If I ever managed to beat all of Destiny 2, I would just nut. I would just be like, finally I can get rid of this 200 gigabyte monstrosity from my hard drive.
I mean, I have some sympathy for the large file sizes because once you get past a certain fidelity in the graphics, you have to keep putting the same file over and over again. So it'll load in a reasonable amount of time. So it creates this silly bloat because the systems aren't all the same. That doesn't change the fact it's crazy to push install and have the game be 170 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And just, dude, I could not imagine this much space existing when I had my computer 15 years ago.
I remember when games were just like 2 gigabytes, and I was like, yeah, that's a good size. And then it was like 8 gigabytes, and I'm like, oh, that's not bad. And then it's like 20 gigabytes, like, this is starting to get kind of a bit big. And then it's like 60 gigabytes, and like, okay, you're really just pulling my leg now. I looked like the last week to see like, I kind of feel like I want to try that new Bungie game that everyone's talking about, Destiny 2. And then I fucking looked at it and I was like, nope. Like I would probably want to install it on my SSD, and that's like I only have like a 500 gigabyte SSD, and that's where my operating system is on. So it's like that'd be basically all the free space on there.
You'd want to have it on your SSD.
I feel like there should be a move back to fucking Dark Legacy ass graphics, just so we can play MMOs with like a reasonable fucking file size.
I don't disagree. Like I think Destiny 2 looks good. But it's just like that's all it has going for it, in my opinion. It's just shooting is fun, and it's not MMO fun. But I don't know. It's. I think if it was a little more stylized and a little less just super 4K, whatever. But I guess that's what they're going for.
All right. Well, I think I'm pretty much done.
Can I talk about Ape Out real quick?
Oh, okay. Sure.
Talking about short games that are excellent. Ape Out is a game, and you basically play a ape escaping a science facility that is just rampaging, killing all of the soldiers and everything. And for whatever reason, coming at you with guns and flamethrowers, etc. What makes the game interesting is that it is stylized, and everything in the game is a silhouette. The ape is an orange silhouette, and then depending on what's going on, the soldiers have different black and white silhouettes, turn into a dark purple silhouette till when the lights go out in the research facility. And every one of your actions, like when you grab a dude or rip his arms off or throw it at someone else, is a different kind of like jazz drum riff. So you're playing through this game, kind of creating your own like rhythm going through it. And there's a good rhythm too that is required for playing the game correctly. And it's one of the most remarkable games I've played. And there's not a whole lot to it. They have like 4 albums, which are just like, each album has a handful of stages. Took me maybe 3.5 hours to beat. It's just like a great, like, $15 game. It's probably like one of the top 5 games that I haven't played a lot of games this year, but if I did an end of year list, it would certainly be close to the top, if not the top. And I think just people should check it out because it's an indie game and it is 100% worth your time.
Excellent. And so I would like to read off the names of the patrons. We have many, many patrons. It's getting kind of nuts. It's not at the point where we're not going to read them off, but like reading off every single new patron is going to get... I feel like the pod has been growing. The Twitter account has like 6,000 followers now, which is just crazy.
Which is, I love nerds, but and it's not an indictment of them, but it's stupid once you get above like a couple thousand. Mm-hmm. Like people will just respond, just be like, "What?" And you're just like, "You didn't need to say anything. That bafflement could have been internalized." And it's just like, but it's just like a stupid pet peeve because you get like a lot of responses to everything you do. And it's just like, just let the game memes into your heart. You don't need to comment.
Yeah, but all of our patrons can comment as much as you want. Yeah,
exactly. Our patrons can comment as much as they want. That's what you get for even $1.
For even $1, exactly. So, Robert Miles, friend of a friend of the pod's cousin, aka Conky. Nights to try and winters beautify the heavens, aka Nachtsieger. Just ignore the screaming in the background. Nate M #1, Dono is short for donation. No such thing as character limb. Thanks, Nate. Jarhead Kuntz, Higgins the Seagull, Nick Rubin. Nick Rubin is a games journalist, and a little while ago they created why Final Fantasy VII's Midgar is one of the most politically charged video game locations ever on VG 24/7, and I highly recommend everyone go check that out. Next, Nathan Melby, Tholos, Kyle Riederman, Eggs, Tom Devan, the video game man, a spooky ghost who is new. Thank you, Spooky Ghost. Jack Salmons, thank you, Jack. Dissonant Dragon, New Dark Cloud, and last but not least, Jordan. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the podcast.
Thank you all. We really appreciate it.
And I think that's it for this week, for the premium episodes.
Okay, the video games turning the knob back to bad, back to worst. And we'll be yelling about them again real soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.